Welcome to Community Conversation. I'm George Lucaci.
And I'm Lisa Allen. Understanding Lyme means understanding what it is and what symptoms to look for. Today, we're interviewing three guests: Dr. Rosen, an acupuncturist who treats patients with Lyme, an actress who at the pinnacle of her career almost lost it all, and a mother whose daughter is so chronically ill from Lyme that she started a business to help others fight back against their Lyme disease. But first, let's meet Dr. Rosen, President, Founder, and Clinic Director at the Center for Acupuncture and Herbal Medicine. Dr. Rosen is an experienced practitioner of classic Chinese medicine and a senior certified instructor of Shen Hammer Pulse Diagnosis. He teaches a sophisticated diagnosis technique worldwide and draws patients from near and far for a variety of ailments that include heart disease, GI, OBGYN disorders, as well as a spectrum of autoimmune disorders, including Lyme disease. He has a book soon to be released on the Chinese medicine, medical understanding and treatment of heart shock and trauma. Welcome, Dr. Rosen. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
So great to have you on. So this is a topic close to our heart because George and I have both suffered from Lyme disease, and you know that. I've been getting treated by you for acupuncture. And for about 17 years, you've been in business treating patients. And from your vantage point, I know it's really complicated, but for our viewers, can you just talk about what is Lyme and why is it so difficult to treat?
Sure. Well, from the Chinese medical perspective, we consider Lyme disease to be under the rubric of what we call Gu syndrome, which is a parasitic disease process. So as we get exposed to this parasitic infestation, it tends to embed itself within the constitution, and it has a tremendous amount of protective measures to remain hidden in the body, right? We give the analogy of, if you imagine your body and your health as this cup of flour and the limes as this teaspoon of oil that you drip all through the flour and then stir it all up and then try and figure out how to now extract that oil back out of the flour. So it becomes a very, very difficult process to do. And so within Chinese medicine, we have a number of different treatment strategies to accomplish that.
And how does acupuncture go at the problem? How do you start to solve Lyme disease with acupuncture?
Yeah, well, the first thing is a proper diagnosis, right? So Lyme disease can present itself in manifold ways, and it depends on the particular individual. So we diagnose the individual based off of, there's a whole bunch of pillars of diagnostics in Chinese medicine. One of the main ones, and my specialty, is in Chinese pulse diagnosis, which you referenced earlier. So within the area of the radial artery on the wrist, we are trained to discover, well, there's about 90 different discrete sensations, and there's 28 different pulse positions and 9 different depths of pressure, each related to anatomical areas of the body, organ systems, emotional states, and so forth. And so from that, we are able to extract out and analyze what's happening individually in any given individual in every single area of the body. From there, we create diagnoses, treatment strategies, and protocols for treatments, right? So it's like a multi-layered process to do that, right?
So you do Chinese medicine also. I don't know if you did treatment with Chinese medicine?
I did the traditional. This was about 20 years ago for me, but I guess one of the things I learned from that, and you just addressed it, that it's called the great imitator. And it's very difficult to diagnose, and you just went through some of that. But what's amazing to me is that this can attack any organ in your body.
Yes. Yeah, and there's particular pulse signatures that over the years I've discovered with Lyme disease. The initial area that it tends to influence is the liver in Chinese medicine. So the liver position is more than just the liver organ, right, from a Chinese medical energetic perspective. It governs a lot of peripheral nervous system functions. It governs muscles. It governs the ability to clear toxins from the body and invigorate blood circulation to particular tissues. So what we start to see on the pulse is that in the position delineated for the liver itself, we start to see this very flooding waveform, which is a sign of an infectious process. If we can treat it initially from that vantage point, we can typically prevent signs and symptoms from occurring. Typically, though, most often when people come to see me, they're in a chronic state already, right? So at that point, because the bacteria and the parasitic infestation has kind of embedded itself and moved through the system, it's now showing itself and implicating multiple organ systems. So it gets much trickier at that point. And so in order to accomplish a successful treatment, one really needs to focus more so on promoting latency and dormancy of the problem. If their body was strong enough, if their immune system was capable enough, they would have thrust the pathogen out at the exterior, right? Over time, it weakens the system. And so to try and force out the inflammation and the infectious process at that point can actually be very damaging, which is why sometimes Western medical approaches can have many side effects, right?
You know, something that I wondered about, and maybe it's something that you don't chronicle, is there a certain age group that you see coming in more than others? Is that something?
Well, I
because
see,
a lot
yeah.
of children might not be able to tell their parents that they have a tick bite or something that's red, and that's why maybe it comes, you know, it manifests itself much later and it sits latent for a long time.
Right. I've seen Lyme's in all populations. I do think it happens more so in the younger population, partially because they're outdoors more, they're more active, and they're in areas and environments where they can become exposed to that process. You know, one of the things I also want to mention is, you know, you've alluded to the fact that this is going to be a bigger population this year because of weather impacts, right? Which is absolutely true, but I think there's another issue that we all need to be aware of, and that's to some degree a social responsibility, right? We have been decimating the population for deer and mice, right? We're building more golf courses and more communities, and we're growing, but we haven't realized that we're displacing the very animals that are carrying these disease processes into our environments. And so that's something we need to also consider and figure out ways of addressing.
Yeah. You know, I have a question because you mentioned the Powassan virus. Now, this has been around for a long time, but this year it seems to be the one virus that's being talked about that is a tick-borne illness. Is there a big difference between a neurological versus a bacterial? Should we be concerned about the Powassan, and how do we protect ourselves? You know, what should we know about that?
Right. Well, the different manifestations of symptoms really comes from the uniqueness of the individual more so than the actual infection itself. So when the neurological system is actually strong, that tends to be where those symptoms are going to be actually heightened. Because the body's able to bring more reserves and more energy and more of the immune system to the surface to fight it. And so you start to see bigger types of neurological symptoms, even, you know, with all the different manifestations of that. When the nervous system is weak, that infection tends to go more interior quickly. And so you start to see implications to the organ systems a little more.
So this is a disease that hides. So can you talk to us a little bit about the co-infections and how that is manifested versus the real diagnosis?
Well,
or
they're
coming together with the Lyme
They're
disease.
right. They're all emerging together, and the hiding nature of that is the difficult part of treatment. And so within Chinese medicine, we have 5 different strategies from an herbal perspective to treat that. You know, one is using anti-parasitic herbs. We have herbs that go in there and actually can kill off parasites themselves. And we also need herbs that clear toxins, heat toxins, and the inflammatory processes that develop from the infections itself. But we also need to worry about how they protect themselves. So we have herbs that we say crack blood. And what that basically means is it's actually breaking down barriers such as biofilms that actually kind of insulate these pathogens from proper treatments, right? And then, of course, we know the impact on the nervous system, so we need to make sure we're calming the Shen or calming the spirit, dealing with mood disorders and all the things that take place from the nervous system implications of that. And then the 5th strategy is actually boosting the immunity, because we need to strengthen the immune system to assist with the proper eradication and movement of this pathogen out to the exterior again, or in the very least, build up enough reserves where we can keep this pathogen latent long enough where the person doesn't have to experience symptoms anymore.
Yeah. You know, we're actually going to be winding down shortly, but I wanted to ask you a question because I went to a soccer field this weekend and all I saw was a landmine. I mean, I thought, oh my gosh, there's deer running, you know, you see stuff in the grass. And so I want to know, how do I protect not just myself, but my children? Because they're not infected yet. So how do I protect them? They're not going to do acupuncture, but there's options. What are those options?
Well, the first thing to do is keep your immune system strong, right? So we need to take care of ourselves, get proper sleep, eat really good foods, not denatured foods, GMOs, and all the different types of pesticides and things like that, getting proper sleep and so forth. But I think also we want to make sure we're using things that can repel these things safely, but at the same time strengthen our own bodies. So taking things, you know, I create essential oil sprays that are resistant, that create resistance to ticks and so forth. And if someone does find a tick on them, you know, using proper measures to properly eliminate and eradicate that from the body.
Great. Yeah. How do people find you?
Well, they can find me. We are in 166 Mountain Avenue in Westfield, Center for Acupuncture and Herbal Medicine. Our website is centerforacupuncture.com.
Excellent. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
Thank
Doctor.
you both for having me. I appreciate it.